They have this assumed goodness. I call it the perception. What is it? The privilege of positive perception. Yes, the PPP. White people have the PPP. They have the privilege of positive perception. Whenever a Black person comes into a room, we do not have that privilege. We have to earn every bit of positive perception that we get. We have to do incredible things. We have to be great. We are not allowed to make mistakes. We have to be on our P's and our Q's at all times. Not everyone is watching us, but it's like everyone is expecting us subconsciously. Again, this is a subconscious feeling. People don't know that this is how they feel about Black people, but it is just like it just is. It's based on all of the media and the rhetoric that is pushed around the world. It's like you just assume Black people are bad and incapable. But when a white person walks through the door, you assume that they are good. You assume that they are qualified. You assume that they are capable. And so they have the privilege of positive perception. Hello, 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 and welcome back to Bri Speaks podcast. I am your host, Bri Speaks, and today we will be talking about why white people can't see racism. And it's really the same thing, and in parallel, we'll be talking about of why men can't see patriarchy or misogyny. It's the same mechanisms at play, but they just show up in different ways. So for white people, it's one thing, and for men, it's another thing. So let's dig in. The first thing is they physically cannot see it. So when it comes to these systems of control, like racism, like patriarchy, they, as in, the powers that be, the elite, the people who are doing all of these things, the puppet masters of the world, if you will, they ensure that the groups of people are separated as best they can. So there are both mostly white neighborhoods and mostly Black neighborhoods and mostly Latino neighborhoods and mostly Asian neighborhoods and mostly XYZ neighborhoods for a reason. One reason is, cultural comfortability. Of course, people want to be with the people that they know. People want to be with people who are related to their culture and their heritage. But there's also actors at play manipulating the situation so that white people don't interact with Black people very much. Like redlining, when that was a thing where they wouldn't allow Black people to literally move into certain neighborhoods that were full of white people. They wouldn't allow Black people to get loans, to live in different places, such as a white neighborhood. Those were actors it was like, on one hand is racism to stop upward mobility of Black people, but on the other hand, it is keeping white people away from Black people so that they cannot see the truth, so that they cannot meet Black people and say, hey, maybe Black people aren't as bad as I've been told, or like, hey, this Black person isn't, rude or mean or angry or stupid or incapable or all the things that white people are told to believe about Black people via the media, via movies, via etc. It's never explicitly said, because I get that a lot. It's like, no one's ever told me. But yeah, no one's ever told you that Black people are this. But if they've only portrayed Black people as a certain way to you your entire life, what are you going to believe if you've never actually met a Black person, or you've only met one or two or three or four Black people, but everything else is all white, and everything else about Black people is all Black people are this that you see, like Boys in the Hood or rappers or gangsters or criminals, or all on the news, Black people are murderers or, criminals, Blacks. If that's all you've ever seen in media, that is what you're going to think about Black people subconsciously if you do not have anything to refuting that information. So that is what white people are told about Black people. And just by physical proximity, they are kept away from Black people. And so they are not able to see that that is not true. And the same thing goes for men and the patriarchy. They are kept away from women. Well, this one's a little different because they should be kept away from women. So we'll leave that one. That one's a little different. We'll leave that one there. But for white people, they are specifically kept away from Black people in order to help perpetuate this narrative of racism, and so that they can't see that, the racist thoughts that they have is are untrue. So that's why they physically can't see racism. But also, when you are a beneficiary of privilege within these social hierarchy systems, you cannot see the privileges that you have because you are in groups or spaces that are full of the privileged, you do not see that everyone that is you don't see that everyone is getting a privilege, you see that everyone is being treated the same. And so your assumption is that everyone outside of this group that you're in are also being treated the same. And so you literally don't see that people are being treated differently because you're not in a place where differences of treatment can be visualized, if that makes sense. So if I'm in a group of white people in a one room, group A, and then group B is a group of black people and group in the room B, but there's no one going in between groups. If the teacher is, going back and forth between the classes and they're teaching the same thing, let's say, but group A full of white people is, they're being talked to very softly. If they have questions, they're allowed to ask questions. If they make a mistake, they're allowed to make mistakes and say like, oh no, it's okay. You'll get it. You'll figure it out. And like, that's how everyone in the room is being treated. If that same teacher comes out and then goes into room B with full of black people and starts yelling and screaming, and if someone makes a mistake, it's like they bottle up their paper and throw it in the trash and then say, you all suck. What's wrong with you? But they both had the same lesson that was being taught. And then at the end, they take a test, and then the teacher comes out and shows tests for scores for group A and then group B. Group A scores are going to be absolutely much higher, 100%, and group B's are going to be bad. And then group A is going to be like, we had the same teacher. Why is it that the group of black people or group B, why did they suck so bad? Why didn't they learn the information? And it's going to look like group A is smarter or more capable. But in reality, group A has literally no idea that group B was treated completely differently. So that's literally what happens in real life in America every day. It's like everyone says that white America and black America are two different experiences. And that is the experience of white people getting this certain treatment and then black people getting this other treatment. But white people are literally in a room to themselves and black people are in a room to themselves. And then there's sometimes a little bit of, you can hear some things through the air vents, maybe, but that is as much as the communication is. And so whenever there is a misunderstanding between these two groups of people, it's always, oh no, it's them. Oh no, it's them. It's like all this finger pointing happening. But in reality, it's the teacher who is treating both of them like crap. Well, the white people weren't treated like crap. Is the white group is intentionally being treated better than the black group so that they don't know that, they are being privileged. They just feel like, this is just the way things are. So and the same thing happens with men is they don't see whenever if they're in a room interviewing for a job with a man, if they don't see that man was asking questions, they don't register like that the man is asking questions that, I don't know, only a man can answer. Like if it's a job for, yes, let's say a CEO or something, and the man is asking him about golf and, and basketball scores. And then the woman comes in and asks about golf and basketball scores and she doesn't answer the questions as well. It's like you don't see that the test was set up for you to win. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a great example because that's a little unrealistic. But something that's a little more realistic is the male interviewer going in, and this happens with white people and black people and with men and women. So if it's a interviewer and it's a man and he's interviewing a male, there is just not always, but like there's a more likely chance that there's going to be some like brotherly bonding there. And like the interview questions might be the same, but at the end of it, the male might say like, oh, I saw you played on saw you had a Dodgers hat on in that picture. You like the Dodgers? I love the Dodgers. And then you'll have that moment. And the same thing. And so that's more likely to happen between two men, whereas a woman could answer the same questions, answer them just as well, but she didn't notice the Dodgers hat. And so she doesn't get the job. And the same thing happens very often in white America and corporate America specifically, where a black person will go in and, answer the jobs and be just as qualified, but the black person, may not have noticed a Taylor Swift reference or like I don't know, a little boo-boo message or a Stanley Cup joke or something that is very, white-centric at this time because white trends, they just go very fast. All trends go fast, but the white ones specifically, they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out. Consumerist culture. Anyways, but yes, so that it's more likely that two white people or to a white woman a white woman and another white woman, or a black white man and another white man, like genders, they'll have that connection, and then that connection will also happen through race. And while if most of the power, most of the hiring power, most of the economic power, most of the political power is in the hands of white people at this time, and they are interviewing applicants for a job, they are more likely going to hire white people because they have that racial synergy, that racial, camaraderie, that group camaraderie, if you will. They'll just have that. It's like, I don't know, the same thing is if you're in a sorority and you are getting interviewed for a sorority or a fraternity, like you'll have a bond, like there's that underlying bond there. But the problem is that men, like it's different for like a sorority or something or a fraternity because they are not the majority of people in power. And so if a person from a fraternity or a sorority gives a little favoritism to their frat brother or their frat sister, that is like the cumulative raising of power is like still marginal or minimal or not statistically significant. But when it's half of the population, which is men, or when it's a population of people who have like 80 to 90% of the political and economic power, it becomes statistically significant if all of those people who are in power are only offering jobs and offering economic mobility opportunities to people who are also in their same racial class. So does that make sense? Okay. So that's why so basically that group A and that group B is why white people cannot see racism in a physical sense because they're separated, but then also in a metaphorical sense because they feel like they are having the same treatment as everyone else around them, and they don't understand that everyone has the same opportunities and they have the same, like we have the same teachers, but they don't see that the situations are completely different because no one's informing them. And if they did inform them, the U.S. government would never obviously tell white people, hey, yeah, we've been racist against black people all this time. And so we should tell them sorry. Like they're never going to do that. Like black people keep asking for reparations and it's like they're never going to give us reparations because that means they have to admit to the wrongs that they've been doing, and they'll never admit to the wrongs that they've been doing. One, because I feel like they don't think it's wrong. They feel like it's a part of the program and it's something that they want again and again and again. But also, two, yeah, they don't feel like it's wrong. And that means they would have to stop. That means they would have to stop. They would have to stop being racist and doing racial oppression if they admitted that they were racist and that they needed, like, that was wrong. They would have to point out the racist stuff that they did, and then they would have to correct that going forward. And racism is such a good tool of control. Like it controls white people through fear. As long as white people are afraid of black people and people of color, they can steer white people to doing whatever they want. And this is why we got Trump in office to this day. The first time he was elected was because they were like, oh, look at these scary black people. Be very afraid. White people vote for me. And guess what? Worked like a charm, like it always does. Every time the government says white people be afraid of these black people, works like a charm. White people do exactly what they want them to do. And then on the other hand, it's like, so if you can arrest as many black people as you can, it's slavery in the prison system, that's free labor. And then if you can, you can experiments on them. I don't know if you guys have heard about the current conspiracy. I'm not going to call it a conspiracy theory, but like conspiracies. This current theory, this current real, true, and has some teeth behind it theory that has set up Neuralink, which is Elon Musk's like AI neuro chip program where he's trying to get people to implant chips into their brains so that they can connect like their thoughts to their computers or something like that. He has created two facilities, and both of them are right beside ICE facilities. One is in Florida and one's in Arizona. And folks have been going missing from those ICE facilities. And at the same time, Elon Musk has said that he wants to increase the experimentation from, I think it's 10 people who have it to like 1,000 in the next year or two. And then at the same time, whenever he was in Doge, he fired all the people who were in the FDA who were over the medical device, safety regulating board. And then at the same time, they set up, there's a company called NIR LLC. Yeah, NIR LLC. And they are based out of Honolulu, Hawaii. And they are doing surgeries out of like some hospital in Hawaii, and then that Hawaii's also just signed a contract with ICE, and ICE is going to be having a facility out there as well, and Neuralink is going to be out there as well. So I don't know, it's just like it's a bunch of weird dots that are very easily connected if you let them. And of course, someone's gonna be like, "Oh, it's all a coincidence," but I'm just like, how many coincidences do you need to understand that something is no longer a coincidence, that it's intentional, that is probably actually really true? And I bring that up to say they are very likely using immigrants and brown people to do this Neuralink testing in the same way that brown people and black people have been used for medical experimentation many times throughout history. Latino women were getting like experimental slash actual hysterectomies at one point when they were going in for just regular gynecological things. The Tuskegee trial with the black men who were given syphilis. And even though we had the cure penicillin, they were allowed to walk around with syphilis for the next 20 years so that doctors could observe what happens. And then they just had this truck with a monkey that had hepatitis that just crashed or fell over in Mississippi in a black neighborhood. And so now if people get hepatitis in black neighborhoods, you know, we'll see what happens. But it's just like, the medical industry, the way that they experiment on black and brown people is crazy. Another reason why white people can't see racism is because the treatment of non-privileged people, whenever white people are allowed to see it, is always justified by some sort of justifications. Of course, our example is like, oh, black people are in jail at such high rates because they commit the most crime, they deserve it. Or, immigrants deserve to be locked up and put into ICE facilities because they were here illegally and they deserve it, which again goes back to that fear-based mentality that they tell white people all of this scary stuff about people of color so that whenever they start doing awful things to people of color, white people feel like it's justified. And like it's not racism, it's just facts. When it's like, no, ma'ams and sirs, it is not facts. These are so what black people have higher arrest rates. They never talk about that. I think it's like 60% of all exonerations are black people. Like 60% of all exonerations in the United States are black people. Like that's such a just crazy statistic. 13% of the population, right, accounts for 60% of all exonerations of like you are free to go because you were innocent and we did not mean to arrest you. 60% of all of them. And what's crazy is just like that is the ones who do make it to exoneration. There are so many cases where people don't they don't win their appeals, or they don't have good lawyers, or they don't understand how to navigate the system, and so they end up rotting in jail for stuff that they didn't do because they got caught up in the system. Or the people who maybe they're not innocent, but they were unjustly or unfairly punished because of the color of their skin. And so it's just like, hey, the judge saw them as a black person. It's just like, you didn't do that much, but you're black, so I'm assuming you'll be a criminal in the future, so might as well just keep you in there now, save us all the trouble. That is like, so like the 60% of exonerations are black people is just like the exoneration. That's not even talking about the people who never got exonerated who were innocent. And that's not even talking about the people who were harshly punished or harshly charged for crimes that were otherwise would have been a misdemeanor or something like that for someone else. So much life is lost for innocent black people just because of the system. But the way the system is set up, they tell people that black people deserve this, brown people deserve this, Hispanic people deserve this. All these bad things that are happening to them, they deserve it. And so you don't worry your little head about it. We're keeping you and your nice white head safe. So if you're not, we, the government, will take care of you and ensure that you don't get harmed by these scary people over there. And white people would just be like, yeah, sure, that makes sense to me. And they don't see that as racism. They see that as someone deserving what they got. Isn't that crazy? That's so crazy to me. And then, and the same thing, I'm gonna just, throw the patriarchy in there is like women, they don't get paid as much. They don't like, there's the gender pay gap. There aren't women in jobs that, that pay more, like the STEM jobs, science, technology, engineering, math, or jobs like that. And they always say, oh, so one, they blame the gender pay gap on, women not going into higher paying fields. And studies have shown that it's not true. Even women in the same exact fields as men will get paid less than the men that they are working with. And that is when controlling for experience and education and other variables that could impact pay. Controlling for all of that, women still will get paid less for the same job. And then men also say that women don't go into these harder jobs, and that is why they don't get paid. But even that is due to sexism of the way that men are socialized and brought up and the way women are socialized and brought up. And so we've seen that whenever we socialize women to engage more with math and science instead of with, just arts and dolls, women do go into these fields and they do it successfully. But men don't see that. They don't see that women are being boxed out of these spaces. They just are told that women are not going into these spaces. And so any type of gender pay gap is justified because women didn't want to do that job anyway, or women couldn't do that job, or like, the job is harder or more dangerous or something like that. And so that justifies any treatment that women get as it pertains to like equality in the workspace, even though it's not even a real justification, but it's there. People say it and men feel like that is the case. So that's that. And then oh yeah, and another reason, my favorite reason, if you saw my recent episode on plausible deniability, you know what's coming. But another reason that white people can't see racism is because of the use of plausible deniability. It's like the government is a master person or system, is a master system at honing plausible deniability. They will always make rules and laws that do not outwardly say, well, except for Jim Crow, ever since Jim Crow, they no longer make laws that outwardly say, Black people cannot do this or Black people cannot do that, so that white people can always say, hey, look, Black people can do whatever white people can do. Like, what's the problem? But it's the problem is like, like they just, so like they'll make there are so like HOAs, right, are housing office authorities, like, the groups that oversee the maintenance of a neighborhood. And one, of course, those are created to keep Black people out of certain neighborhoods. But two, those are technically like private entities. And so even within some of those HOA clauses, I want to say till this day, or like maybe it was recently taken out, but it was either recently taken out or like till this day, HOAs still have clauses in it that says like you cannot sell your house to a Black person. Like there are HOAs that have that in their bylaws. You cannot sell your house to a Black person. Like they so that's like that's not really plausible deniability, actually. That's not. And I think I said that's why I think that's been challenged in court. And I'm not sure if they won or not. But like, I don't know. A good example is like the taking down DEI is a great example of like, oh yeah, this is not racist, this is anti-racist. Or like the Voting Rights Act right now that Louisiana is trying to get struck down. The second part of the Voting Rights Act is like they had to take into account racism or like race when they were gerrymandering to ensure that Black people were like that they had a majority district. And there are laws that say that they have to do that in order to ensure that Black people are not discriminated against in these southern and very discriminating states. But Louisiana sued and said like, hey, you can't tell us that we have to take race into account when creating our districts because that's racist. And you're discriminating against white people, essentially saying that we can't just draw the lines however we want to. We should be able to draw the lines however we want to. And we won't take race into consideration, of course, and you can't make us. And so, although we all know that whenever they didn't have they didn't apply the law that is in place, the Voting Rights Act law. Although Louisiana has 1/3 Black people, they were only given 1/6 of the voting power in district. There were only 1 of 6 voting districts that were majority Black, although Black people account for 1/3 of the population. So they redrew it, and then they had 2 out of 6. So they had actually 1/3 of the voting power. But now that's when Louisiana decided to sue and say like, hey, you making us do that is racist, and we shouldn't take race into consideration at all. But when you didn't take race into consideration, we saw what happened. You took away the power of Black people. It's just like, that's not racist. That's like, so it's like they're trying to use plausible deniability. Like if they strike down the Voting Rights Act and say that you don't have to have a majority Black district, there will be no majority Black districts anywhere, like almost anywhere. For the most part, it's just like, yeah, there might be, like in Texas, they might have Houston and Austin, but then the rest of them will all out like absolutely be like ensure that they are white or Republican districts. And the same thing with Georgia, because Georgia has a ton of Democratic hot pockets that are actually very densely populated and should account for much more. And same thing with Florida. Really, all of the red states, I mean, honestly, all the red states have enough Democratic like power where if the gerrymandering wasn't so biased, like they do this thing called packing and cracking, where it's like the first step is to pack all Democratic voters, usually Black people, into one district so that they only have one district, and then, divvy up the rest between the white or Republican voting constituents. So that's packing. And then they do cracking, which is if they do have like a lot of democratically voted people, they'll essentially, like, you can't see me if you're on Spotify, sorry, but they'll crack it up. Like, imagine a circle, and instead of that one circle being, a circle full of democratic people, they'll carve it up into, like, let's say 5 pieces of pie, and then they will make a bigger circle around the little circle, and then they will extend out each of those pieces of pie to encompass like some of the outer circle. And that outer circle, let's say, is full of all, red Democrat, like red Republican voting people. And so while it could have been like half of that pie and then a little bit of red inside the pie, they made the pie 5 pieces so that each blue piece is very small, and then covered it up with a whole bunch of red so that way you while you would have had one or several blue districts in that little circle, they made it so that they had blue districts. They cracked it up and then they essentially like dispersed it so that the voting would be watered down, would be less concentrated, would be less powerful, and less meaningful. So that's how they gerrymander, and they literally they have cracking and packing, like they have whole sayings about it, but there is plausible deniability there. There's like, oh no, that's just how we decided to district today. That's just, we're redistricting. It just happens. Ooh, like, okay, so yeah, so there's always plausible deniability. And then another good example I wanted to, like, I don't know, that I hope would resonate with people is like the favorite child like syndrome. Like, your parents are never allowed to say that they have a favorite child, but how does a parent act when they have a favorite child? It is they like if a favorite child does something, it's like they get a whole lot of praise, like, oh my God, great job, Timmy. And if the non-favorite child does the same thing, it's just like, okay. Or if the favorite child does something bad or makes a mistake, it's just like, oh, it's okay, you'll get it next time. Here, try again. Here, try again. I'll give you a little bit more. Here, we'll have another training session tomorrow so you can get it. But then if the non-favorite child does something, does a mistake, doesn't get it right, it's just like, why? What's wrong with you? Why are you doing it this way? You know what? Go to your room. You know what? No, TV time tomorrow. No ice cream on your birthday. Like, it's just like just extreme, like harsher punishments for every mistake, and less praise or reward for anything good. But with the favorite child, it's like you get so much praise for any small thing that you did. Could tie your shoe good today as a 10-year-old, and they're like, oh my God, you did so great. And then for any mistake, you don't get punished. You get you get patience, you get grace, you get kindness. And if you have two Black people, or one Black person and one white person, and they are going through life and one is given the benefit of the doubt, one is giving many chances, one is assumed to be good, assumed to be confident, assumed to be, this righteous person, and then the Black person goes through life and they're assumed to be bad, they're assumed to be incapable, they're assumed to be incompetent. Who is going to go further in life? It's just like, people say systemic racism doesn't exist, but it's like systemic racism is not. It's like, yes, it is in the laws and it is in the like actual systems. Like, the systems of government are racist. It was built on the foundation of this country was racism, and it's never been weeded out ever since. The culture of this country is racism, and it's never been weeded out. Like, people don't understand a culture. Culture does not. The laws change, and then the culture follows. Like, it's not. The culture can change, and then the laws will follow. But either way, it's like it takes a lot of work to change a culture of a country, of a business, like of a small business, nonetheless of an entire country. So for people, especially white people, to think that racism doesn't exist and they can't see it and it's not real, it's just so asinine. But anyways, going back to our two people going through life, it's like white people don't understand that they are rising to the tops of these hierarchies because they are given so many chances, because they are given so much grace, because they are assumed to be so good. They have this assumed goodness. I call it the perception. What is it? The privilege of positive perception. Yes, the PPP. White people have the PPP. They have the privilege of positive perception. Whenever a Black person comes into a room, we do not have that privilege. We have to earn every bit of positive perception that we get. We have to do incredible things. We have to be great. We are not allowed to make mistakes. We have to be on our P's and our Q's at all times. Not everyone is watching us, but like, it's like everyone is expecting us subconsciously. Again, this is a subconscious feeling. People don't know that this is how they feel about Black people, but it is just like, it just is. It's based on all of the media and the rhetoric that is pushed around the world. It's like you just assume Black people are bad and incapable. But when a white person walks through the door, you assume that they are good. You assume that they are qualified. You assume that they are capable. And so they have the privilege of positive perception. And people don't understand how impactful that is for people to assume good, and you have to make mistakes for their assumption to be worsened of you, versus you walk in and you are assumed bad and you have to work in order to gain a positive perception. One is like anything you have to, if like you're breaking a habit, you have to put in so much energy. If you do something automatically all the time, in order to stop that automatic like process that you always do, you have to work. You have to put in cognitive effort to stop yourself from doing that habit of like, oh no, I was about to do it again. Like, oh no, I'm about to do it again. It's just, you have to be aware of it. You have to think about it. You have to put in a lot of work to change that habit because it's so automatic. And so if you have everyone in the world assuming that you are bad and you have to do work to like, I use the habit example is like, but I think that was a bad example of just trying to put an example of like, it is so much harder to, okay, I'm thinking about maybe marketing is a good example. Okay, no, a fantastic example is subscriptions. It is when you do an automatic, like when you subscribe to anything, they always want you to put it on automatic renewal, because it will take energy from you to go in and turn the subscription off. And so you will more likely let the subscription keep going until like you legitimately cannot stand it anymore. You don't need it, or you got like 25,000 different shampoos in your house because you had an automatic shampoo subscription, whatever, talking about myself. It is hard to go in and turn that off than it is for you to go in every month and buy it. Or so, okay. Oh boy, this is difficult. Anything that takes energy input is going to be harder. And so I just feel like, because I'm trying to stave off the arguments that basically like it's not so bad of like if you coming in and people have a positive perception versus you come in and you have to work to get your positive perception. I could just hear people saying like essentially like it's like, well, but at the end of the day we both have to work to get the job, or we both have to work to do something. But it's just like it is not the same as if you have the power of positive perception. If people perceive you positively, it takes a lot of work on your part to fudge that up, versus if you are coming in with a negative perception of you, or a subconscious negative perception, or even just a neutral perception. I'll take neutral over negative, but Black people have a negative perception, and we start at -2 and we have to work our way to 0, whereas white people start at +2 and they get to work their way to 10. White people have literally a head start when it comes to life, not because they are given more money than us as a Black people or brown people, but because they are given the benefit of the doubt, because they are given the positive perception of you're probably a good person. And I've heard white people say that they know this, that they know they'll be in the store and they know that the store people are following around the Black people. So they're like, okay, great. And they'll just rob them blind. Like white people will steal and rob you blind because they know that you're not paying attention to them, because they know that you perceive them as a good, well-to-do white person. It's like, it's just so stupid to judge people off the color of their skin because you absolutely know nothing about them. But it's so deeply ingrained in us that people will do it anyway. Okay, and so the last reason, and I'm wrapping it up. The last reason why white people can't see racism is because if they had to admit that they had this privilege of positive perception, or that that the cards are actually stacked against Black people and people of color in any significant amount of way, they would probably have to grapple with the fact that everything that they've got came to them easier than someone else. And I think that's a really hard pill to swallow. I know it is for anybody. It is hard. It's hard for them to acknowledge that they got something like easier than someone else, or they had a leg up. Everyone wants to think that I got everything based on my own skill, my own merit, my own hard work, my own thoughts, my own creativity, my own expertise. I did all this stuff, and that's what got me to where I am. And it has nothing to do with luck. It has nothing to do with any privilege. It has nothing to do with any benefits. It has nothing to do with none of that. It just has to do with me and everything that I've done. And sorry to tell any white people who are listening, but that is untrue. And, I will say that to anybody, like, because it's like, I don't want to say this, but I will say it. Everyone has I want to say everyone has some sort of privilege, but I don't know. When it comes to the privilege of positive perception, not everybody has that. So specifically when it comes to the privilege of positive perception, not everybody has that. Because I want to say, certain, just by being in the United States, you have a privilege, and it's like, yeah, you do. You have access to certain things that people don't. Sure, that's true. But if I'm talking specifically about white privilege, which is the privilege of positive perception, no, that's a very unique privilege to white people, that people can look at you and assume goodness. That is a very unique privilege to white people, and it gets you very far. It will get you very far. But okay, other people do have that. Like pretty privilege, I think is a good example of that. Of like people look at an attractive person and just assume goodness. It's called the halo effect when someone has one good thing about them. So someone assumes that all good things are about them, like all things are about them are good. And so if you are a very beautiful person, people assume that you're a good person, which is nuts because there are beautiful narcissists everywhere. Actual narcissists, like actual evil, Machiavellian, awful, evil people, but they are Huda, and I don't care what anyone will say. Huda from Love Island, absolutely a narcissist. Absolutely a narcissist, 100%. Like just again, like narcissists don't know that they're narcissists. They don't know what narcissism is. But when you look at all the traits of a narcissist of like wanting to be the center of attention, that girl loves her some attention. Um, like not having empathy for other people. She has never empathized with Alandria and Shelley's like racism like situation. And she said, yeah, people were racism against her, but was it to the same extent? It was not to the same extent. And then it's just like in the way she treated Chris in the villa. Like, I don't want to go into pop culture here, but there are so many like beautiful. Like Huda is beautiful as a good looking girl. But there are so many good looking narcissists. So being like good looking, traditionally good looking, does not mean that you are a good person. But people will assume that because good looks have the privilege of positive perception. White people have the privilege of positive perception. Rich people have the privilege of positive perception. If you have a lot of money, people just assume that you're smart or that you're talented or that you're worthy of reverence for some reason. And it's just like there are so many people who get money from doing nothing, so many people who get money from actually being stupid. A lot of nepotism. A lot of people got money from just working at daddy's business or getting a promotion from daddy's friend. So it's just like riching, all of these things that come with the assumption of talent or intelligence or goodness are actually not associated with any of those things, but people have somehow connected it in their mind. And I know how they have. It's because of media. Media in the United States has like the beautiful person is always like super, somehow the beautiful person is always smart and talented and cool and funny and empathetic and handsome. It's just like it's all the media. It's all the media that portrays the most beautiful people as always the goodest, kindest, smartest, and talentedest and empathetic people. And they always portray the villain as ugly, as larger or overweight or obese, as like acne or like glasses or tattoos or something like that. The media has always portrayed the beautiful person as good, and usually the white person as good, and then the ugly person as bad, or the ugly person as black or something like that. That is usually the trope. Versus if you look at media from other walks of life, like anime is a great example. Although anime has like some weird pedo culture in there for sure, it does some a little weird there. But one thing I do enjoy about a lot of anime is that the message behind all of them are never just like, it's not just get riches. It's never just get riches, which is what a lot of media in the United States about. But it's like, how can I try harder? How can I work harder? How can I grow? How can I be a better person? How can I, defeat my enemies? How can I get stronger to defeat my enemies? Like how can I get stronger to overcome these internal challenges that I have? They're never about, and then like there's always like, like a villain, an external challenger, but it's not always like, let me just get money and validation and girls and riches. It's just like, it's not that. And so a lot of people in Asia, I will have, and this is a guess, I will say, but it's a guess, but I even just thinking about the discipline in Asian countries versus the discipline in America, the media that they have over there is how can I grow and get better as a person? How can I get stronger as a person? Versus it's over here is how can I get richer as a person? How can I get more money as a person? And I think the cultures both show that. It's just they both show everyone over here wants to get money as quick as as quick as and as easy as possible. Whereas in Asia, they want to, grow and be stronger and be disciplined and be structured and be a good person. I don't know about I'm sure they want to be good people. Everyone wants to be a good person. I'm just trying to be nuanced here, but I'm going in a territory that I don't really know about. So let me be quiet. But anyways, that is why white people cannot see racism. It's hidden from them. It is shielded from them. It's done in a way that there's plausible deniability. And then also they don't want to have to admit that it exists because then they might have to have an ego death and grapple with the fact that they didn't get everything that they have by sheer merit, but possibly by a unearned benefit of the doubt, such as the privilege of positive perception. Thank you for listening. If you would like to see my narcissistic hierarchies of control, you can purchase a copy at free2.com under Narcissistic Social Hierarchies of Control PDF. If you would like to hear more of these takes in a shorter form, you can follow me on TikTok at Bri.Speaks. And you can also follow me on YouTube if you're not even watching this on YouTube at Bri.Speaks, and then on Spotify at Bri Speaks Podcast. And I thank you all for coming and listening. If you like this episode, please do check out my episode on narcissistic hierarchies of control and plausible deniability. And I do hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.